All right, let's just jump right in. When you picture a bee, what comes to mind? Probably sunshine, right? Flowers, maybe some sweet golden honey. But deep in the jungles of South America, there's a bee that's given all of that up for something way, way darker.
I know. It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, doesn't it? A bee that eats meat? But this is not fiction. This is the incredible, true story of a group of bees that totally abandoned a plant-based diet to become nature's most unlikely carnivores.
And here it is. Say hello to the vulture bee. Now, at first glance, it looks like a lot of other stingless bees. It's small, kind of reddish-brown, a little fuzzy, but don't let its looks fool you, because it's hiding a seriously gruesome secret about where it gets dinner.
So, how in the world does a bee go about getting meat? Well, they don't exactly hunt in the way you might think. Their method is much more specialized, and honestly, it's a bit macabre.
Yep, you're seeing that right. Instead of buzzing happily from flower to flower, these bees swarm decaying animal carcasses. They found a niche in the ecosystem that no other bee has, acting less like pollinators and more like, well, like tiny flying vultures.
And their whole process is just brutally efficient. First, they find a carcass. Then they crawl inside through any soft spot they can find, like the eyes. From there, they use their super powerful jaws, not stingers, to literally tear off little pieces of meat, which they then salivate on and swallow.
These store all this meat in a special organ called a crop. You can basically think of it as their own built-in biological grocery bag. It lets them carry their meaty haul all the way back to the hive for processing.
Okay, so this brings us to the big question, right? If they're eating meat, does that mean they make meat honey? It's a pretty wild idea, and you see it pop up online all the time. But the reality is actually a little more complicated, and frankly, even more interesting.
So that term meat honey, it's really what we'd call a misnomer. It seems to have started from some early mix-ups between a few different species of vulture bee, because believe it or not, they don't all handle their food the same way. Let's break that down.
Okay, so this is where things get really cool. We're looking at two different species with two totally different game plans. On one hand, you have Trigona hypogenia. This one doesn't collect nectar at all. Instead, it gets its sugar from fruits and other plants. It also gathers meat, of course. Back at the hive, it stores the meat paste and the sugar stuff in separate pots, but eventually it mixes them together, and that blend matures into something that is actually a lot like honey. But then you've got Trigona necrophaga. This one does collect nectar and it does make real honey, but, and this is the key, it keeps its honey completely separate from the meat. The meat is used for something else entirely.
So how is any of this even possible? I mean, eating rotting flesh is incredibly dangerous. It is crawling with bacteria that would kill most other animals. Well, the vulture bee's secret weapon lies deep inside its own body.
Over millions of years, they've evolved a super acidic gut. It's so powerful that it not only breaks down flesh, but it also neutralizes all those deadly microbes you'd find on a carcass. It's like having a built-in sterilization system. The other key is a special set of glands in their heads called the hypopharyngeo glands. Now, in regular honeybees, these are the famous glands that produce royal jelly to feed the queen. But in the vulture bee, they've been retooled for a totally different, but just as amazing, purpose.
For Trigona necrophaga, the one that keeps its meat and honey separate, the process is just incredible. So a worker bee in the hive eats the stored meat paste. Its acidic gut does its job and breaks it all down. Then those amazing head glands kick in and secrete this protein-rich, jelly-like food. This stuff is completely decay-resistant, and it takes the place of pollen for the baby bees. It's essentially a protein-packed baby food made from carrion.
So let's zoom out a bit. What does this all mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, this isn't just some weird little quirk of nature. The vulture bee represents a massive evolutionary leap, and it shows just how incredibly adaptable life on this planet can be.
And get this, scientists only officially confirmed this meat-eating behavior in 1982. For almost 200 years after the bee was first discovered and classified, nobody knew it was a carnivore. It just goes to show you how many of nature's secrets are still out there, just waiting to be found.
This really is the heart of their evolutionary story. Vulture bees have completely evolved away from needing those little hairy structures on their legs that other bees use to carry pollen, the so-called pollen baskets. Instead, all that evolutionary energy went into developing those incredibly powerful jaws for tearing flesh.
It's a direct trade-off, driven entirely by their one-of-a-kind diet.
When you get right down to it, the vulture bee is just this stunning example of how evolution can find the most unexpected paths. It completely rewrites the rulebook on what it means to be a bee. And that kind of leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? If a meat-eating bee is real, what other impossible creatures are still out there, just waiting for us to find them?